So Kat, you've got some science in your hand.
I have.
Go on, show us what that's all about.
Cool. Biodiversity is our life support system on the planet. We can't live without it. In fact, even half of our GDP depends on biodiversity. And it's under threat. And the problem is we can't even measure it effectively. So if we can't measure it, we don't know what we can do to help it recover and to stop its decline. And so eDNA is this amazing tool which relies on the fact that when animals are going around in their environment, or any species is going around in its environment, it's leaving traces of DNA. Just like when we touch something, you leave a fingerprint with DNA in it, and you can use that DNA to trace back to the person. So a lot of this DNA ends up in water. So species that live in water, they're shedding the DNA directly into it. And then from rainfall and runoff, we get DNA also of the land species into the water. And so the water becomes this sort of soup of genetic information about what species live in and around it. And we can capture those little tiny DNA traces just by passing the water through a filter. And so the filters that we've got, the great thing about this is it's so easy that rather than in the past to survey biodiversity, you have to send out a big field team and do lots of specialist survey methods. This is so easy that a primary school child can do it. So all you do, literally, you just pull up the water. I've got a mug here, but this would normally be from the sea or from a river or a pond. You pull up the water in this syringe, and then inside here we've just got a really fine filter. And it screws onto the syringe.
Fine? I mean, are we talking like tea bags sort of fine?
Much, much finer than that. So it's 0.8 microns,
0.8
which
microns.
to compare that to the microplastics where they're using a 50 micron filter, and that's much smaller than they normally use for microplastics. This is 0.8 microns.
Compared to like a pinhead, we're like
much smaller, far too small to see.
That's brilliant.
Just about possible to get water through it though. Yeah. But the thing is, it's small enough that it captures all of the tiny particles inside the water, including the DNA. Right. So you just push the water through like this. It's very difficult to do this without looking a little bit rude. And you can't see anything, but inside here now there's a whole world of DNA. Yeah. And the cool thing is that actually the DNA in here includes everything from the bacteria and the microbes, which can tell us about pollution and the condition of ecosystems, all the way up to whales and dolphins and fish and all of the sort of wildlife that we love to tell stories about and connect with. So we can look at biodiversity through loads of different lenses through this one really simple sampling method. So it's going to be really exciting, particularly to compare, to be able to generate several different layers of information about biodiversity and then combine that with the pollution, the microplastics, the sound, everything else that's being collected.
So Alex, I mean, that in itself is phenomenal. I've just been told about the hydrophone and the data that's going to come back from that. We've got salinity and temperature and obviously the microplastics. I mean, as a scientist, that feels like a pretty good inbox.
Yeah, I'm getting excited just as you two are talking about it now. Just the idea that you are going to be on these rowing boats rowing away, there could be a whale underneath you that dwarfs these, and you might not know about it, but afterwards we're going to pick it up probably from the sound, and we could well pick it up through its DNA there. Yeah. So if we can join those two together, hearing it had been there, having DNA proof that we've been there, we'll be able to map that, and we'll be able to see the location that some of these large charismatic marine mammals are going around the UK, maybe in areas that we didn't know, and there'll be rare species of shark and all sorts of things that maybe we didn't know they were there, or we didn't know they were there in such abundance or something like that.
And if I was a 10-year-old watching this right now, can they see the data? How can they get involved and understand what's going on here?
Yeah, certainly we plan to make all the data fully available, and I think as this race goes on multiple years, we will be able to build the educational programs around what went on the year before. So when they're tracking you on your GPS the next year going round, we'll go, we spotted that pod of dolphins there last year. We heard them, we got their DNA. We saw there was a real anomaly in the biodiversity at the bottom of that estuary or something. What's going on there? Is there pollution going down there? Do we need to look at that place in a little bit more detail? Yeah. Do we need to get our regulatory authorities looking at that place in a little bit more detail?
What's the potential?
Yeah, so I think, we're in a position at the moment in the world where we have to change our relationship with nature and the world, and we have to change many different parts of our behaviour as individuals, as businesses, as governments. Knowing how to change the behaviour in an effective way so that we move from activities that are eroding nature to activities that are restoring and regenerating nature requires a lot of knowledge and data. And so, for me, this data, yes, it can help show where there are negative impacts and where there's particular, pollution issues and things. But what I'm most excited about is the potential that we have to show how some of the things that we're doing to restore ecosystems are starting to bring nature back. There's so much amazing work going on all around the UK now to restore seagrass, kelp, salt marshes. All of these are really, really important ecosystems. And the great thing about nature is that it does come back fast when it's given a chance. So I think over this sort of 4-year period that we've got, we really will be able to see those sort of positive impacts as well. And I think too much of the narrative around nature and conservation has become about sort of beating people with sticks and saying, we can't do this, we've got, and actually let's tell some of the positive stories. Let's show how easily we can bring things back and engage with that and build excitement and get the next generation part of a sort of nature positive society and economy.
Fantastic.